can I just propose 3 ohms, just to let that settle and sink in? Yeah. Do I have to lead it then?
Go for it.
No pressure. Oh, that microphone's going. Thank you. Such a blessing to sit here with you all and with my sister Jojo, and I just love it that there's 2 women here speaking somehow. So I want to speak about practically how I think we enable change in the world. I've seen people speaking at Bhakti several times, and quite often what you get is the big problem in the world and the big solution, but you kind of have that thing of like, so what am I supposed to do, and like, how does that shift happen? I've been asking myself how change happened since I was about 9 years old, and knowing that that's what my life's about. But I'm also just like a really ordinary person. I'm a mum and I run a charity. I have a science brain though. I did a PhD and things like that, and I problem solve. Things sit in my mind and they go round, and I want to know what the answer is, and I do research and I read things and I watch videos, and I've done all of that, so you don't have to if you don't have that kind of brain. And I want to share my findings with you on what I think we could do. So the first bit is kind of, I won't even bother outlining this, but we know, and I do swear a bit, my dad was a coal miner, so I feel like it's a sacred space, but it's sort of par for the course. We know the world's fucked in a big way in terms of the damage that we're doing, the deep inequality that there's now 62 people that own half the world's wealth, and so on. And I did ask why, why? Because I don't feel like it's those 62 people's fault. And I know that there's a shadow element here, but there's also like a really practical element, and it's to do with the economic system that we have, which is neoliberalism, and how that's set up and how it's based on debt. And it's also to do with a corrupted political system, and the 2 things are intertwined. When money gets concentrated in certain hands and there's a shadow side, then they can use that money to shore up political power and to fix the economy to serve a shadow need, if you like. And I did something a few years ago called Street School Economics, which talks about economics and corruption. So in just one side of leaflet, it's explained what the problem is and what the policies are, and ecocide law is absolutely part of that. So that's an offering, and if you put Gail Bradbrook into YouTube, you'll get a 45-minute video, and you don't need to know anything else about economics. It's all in that 45 minutes, and if you don't want to even spend 45 minutes on economics, I don't blame you. That's the kind of mad thing I do. You can just know that there are alternatives, and they're already worked up, they're already discussed, there's great minds on them. So that's okay. So we know, I'm not saying we know absolutely everything, I'm not trying to be that arrogant, but that we do know the shifts that are needed, and there's some beautiful policies and minds on it. And then there's, as spiritual practitioners, we know there's something underneath that as well. There's a brokenness, and it's a system. If you into systems thinking, the system that we sit in feeds our brokenness, and our brokenness prevents us from moving. And of course, we know that we have to do our inner work as part of that. And he's already been mentioned once today, but Charles Eisenstein talked fundamentally, this is not about greed, it's not about power, it's about separation, that we're separated from the earth, from ourselves, and we're separated from this deep knowing that there's the interbeing, that we're all interconnected. And I would, if you haven't checked out Charles Eisenstein's stuff, I'd really recommend him to you. He's got lovely TED Talks too. So I guess, talking about that separation, there's a particular bit of the separation, which is the separation between us, that I've come to realise is a key thing that we need to address at this time, and this is what the Compassionate Revolution's for. So you'll all be doing your own work. You are, because that's why you're here. You're doing your work, and it's a joy doing the work. And as Gandhi said, being the change you want to see, it means doing the work from a place of self-love. There's been so much around activism that's about guilt and about burnout and that kind of stuff. And I think the really good news, the shift that I've seen over many years, is that there is a spiritual activism, that there are people, you know, I'm just sending love actually up to the Reclaim the Power camp at Merthyr Tydfil that's going to be closing a coal mine down this weekend. So really sending lots of love to that group. But I do know within that group is that spirit of self-care, and I think that's really important. And there may be times that in your service to the world, as a parent or a teacher, whatever work you're doing, that the inner journey is the bit that you need to be focused on. But I think Jojo outlined it really well, that actually there is a place where the inner and the outer work are one. You know, that you do one and you do the other, and one leads to needing to do the other. You do the inner work, the compassion's there, you feel the need to, you want to do something in the world. You do something in the world and the shit comes at you, and you have to take it inside and work out what got triggered for you. So at this time, contribution is key. This is not a time for sitting back if you do have some energy. And I would say, however you feel moved to contribute, you know, make your contribution. But what I want to propose to you is something very strong, is really consider contributing a percentage of your energy to something that's collective, to something that's a together thing. And that might be, and it's sort of like tangibly collective, yeah? So that might be about being a member of a union. The trade unions are under attack at the minute. Being part of a crowdfunding for some kind of beautiful project. There's amazing projects around electric cars in Wales, for example. Joe Robbins could tell you over there. Joining a mass meditation, calling for ecocide law. It's one of the things that we do as part of the Compassionate Revolution. That's actually led by Dinesh, who couldn't be here this weekend, but or taking part in the groundswell actions. If people have got time on Tuesday, you can go over to Merthyr and help close that coal mine down. So why am I saying that we need to act as a collective? Well, because we are one. That's what we talk about here. We're not a bunch of individuals. And also, just theoretically, if you listen to political theorists like Hannah Arendt, Gene Sharp and others, that is where our power lies. Although individuals can lead and inspire and do great things, actually political power, and by politics, and I know it's an off-putting word, politics is about how we choose to govern the world, how we choose to set up rules in society, how we choose to have our schools be, our industries run, the regulations and so on. That power lies in the collective. It's always in the collective. Even if it feels like it's George Osborne at the minute, it's not. Because the reason it feels like it's George Osborne is because we collude and we allow. By the way, yeah, George Osborne's a beautiful person. I've had some deeply spiritual moments of deep work and knowing that there's a broken soul there that will be welcomed back into our family at some point. They'll probably have to clean the disabled loos for the rest of their lives or something, but we will look after them. So one of the things we say in the Compassionate Revolution is that together we're irresistible. You know, it's in the togetherness that we can do something. So what I've done is create something really practical with this team of people to allow that togetherness. And if you doubt it, and I don't feel you will do, but that's why it's been so important to separate us and to use divide and rule, and that's why we're hearing about the migrants and the immigrants and the disabled people and the benefit scroungers and all that nonsense. It's to divide and rule us. So the second thing I'm proposing to you is to embrace disobedience, to find your spirit of peaceful mischief, and to work your muscles, to find your muscles again of cunning dissent. And I'm going to give you some examples of what you could do. And if we could do those two things, be part of a collective and be peacefully mischievous, I really think will change things. So this is about fun and, as Quakers say, living life adventurously. And it's an antidote to despair and isolation and resignation. It's not about grinding away, this has got to be done because it's the right thing. And that is the kind of thing that would just leave you on your meditation cushion, just hoping it all gets sorted. So, compassionate revolution, there's two powerful words. And my colleague George Barzer, who I met at an Occupation of Parliament Square, I first heard using them together. There's also a book related, but not related specifically to what we're doing. But first of all, it's compassionate because we love George Osborne and the others, despite. And everybody would be safe. There's no heads on pillars from this revolution because we all carry, and again, as Charles Eisenstein says very beautifully, if we walked a mile in their shoes, that public school system that separates children and so brutally damages them at an early age, we'd be doing the same thing. You know, we're not better than they are. And I really don't feel them and us about this. And it's also about upcycling. I was talking about Porton Down this week for some reasons, and I don't know if you know that place. It's this horrible place where they test weapons of mass destruction and animal testing, but it's full of amazing scientists. That's the kind of place that will be upcycled quickly for good purpose. You know, there's so much amazing science and biomimicry and ways that we can clean the planet up. The institutions are there, we don't have to smash anything, we just need to upcycle it and make it more beautiful. So that's the compassion. The revolution bit is just simply that we need a rapid redistribution of wealth and power. We have to do that. And there's a mechanism, if we act as a collective way, we can do that. So change has come. If you look at any social change programme, it's had sort of 4 stages to it. One is that there's a raising of consciousness. There's an issue, there's a problem. Women should have the vote. The environment's being destroyed. India needs its independence, or whatever. There's coordination between groups. And of course there's mess in that, you know, people egos and so on. But groups start to work together, networks start to come together. And the 4th stage, I'll skip the 3rd one because it's the most important one to tell you about, but the 4th stage is consolidation. It's what I was saying at the start. You need to know that there's some really good ideas around and that you're ready to implement them, like Polly's ecocide law is ready to go. So what's the step, the 3rd step that makes a change? It's confrontation. It's the time when we say as a collective, do you know, we just aren't having this anymore, we're not doing it anymore. It was the anniversary last week of the Kinder Scout mass trespass when people said, we want access to our land. You don't get to say the land doesn't belong to us. In our spirits, we have to be on the British land. And there was a mass trespass. And that's why you have the right to roam. People broke the law. We know that Gandhi did the salt tax march, and the suffragettes also refused to pay their taxes and smash windows and so on, like the Chartists before them had done. I don't know if that smashing window is going to press any buttons. I don't think it's the right thing for us, the smashing windows bit, but you know, what I'm saying is that people rose up in peaceful mischief, and that was culturally appropriate at the time, actually. So the practical side of compassionate revolution is that there is a website, sorry for you technophobes, but the internet age makes this possible. You know, look what people achieved without the internet. And it's a space where we host pledges. I will do it if you will do it. I've just learned last week that there's an academic focus on this. It's called conditional commitment. So you don't have to do it unless other people say they're going to do it. So it takes no time. You just say, well, I'll do it if you get to the right numbers. So there's safety. And truthfully, the person taking the biggest risk with Compassionate Revolution is myself and some of the team that I work with. We really de-risk it for the rest of you. And that is what the conditional commitment, the pledge, is what changed the landscape for this generation, because previously, during the Industrial Revolution, there were wildcat strikes. People would just randomly strike and they would get killed, injured, struck off and so on. And what happened when we unionised was that you could have a pledge. I'll strike if you'll strike. And that's what really changed the future of Britain, because the whole union movement led to the labour movement, led to the NHS, led to social housing. It's all being sold off and fucked at the minute, but that's where it came from, and that's why they had to attack those institutions that could help us to organise. But we have a new way of organising, which is the internet. I've been, I told you about this inquiring brain, and I really, really wanted to know how this stuff changes. And I came back, I went last month on a retreat to Costa Rica to work with some medicine plants with iboga and ayahuasca and kambo. And one of the things I asked in my intentions was to grandmother ayahuasca in particular. I asked for lots of, and I'll talk to anybody about this afterwards, but lots of things that were beautiful. That's too much to share now. But one of them was, if there are any social codes, any codes for social change, can you please share them with me? Whether it's, I have to get into the collective consciousness and see the idea of disobedience, get us to disobey. That in terms of disobedience, about 7 reasons why people obey. And we fundamentally have a neoliberal dictatorship. 7 reasons why people obey. Some of them are to do with identifying with the people that are in charge. I don't think we're doing a lot of that, to be truthful, with a bunch of kind of eat and toffs. Other ones are to do with vested interest. Well, even the police don't have a vested interest anymore. Their pensions are being attacked and so on. Mostly it's bad. It's just habit and a lack of confidence and a lack of example. So that's kind of something we could shift. Well, it is something we could shift. So part of this grandmother ayahuasca thing was going into the consciousness, and I feel I could say that here. It doesn't sound so wacky, but also it's practical. If there were any things I need to know, and the week that I got back from that retreat, I launched a mass civil disobedience that I'm going to tell you about, and the week after, some of the things that didn't quite work with it, partly it did, partly it's ongoing work. I met up with this academic researcher who explained over a 4-hour period exactly what I need to do next and why, with graphs and things that as a scientist just made me happy, statistics and stuff. And in the middle of this meeting, he said, basically, Gail, what I'm giving you here are the codes for social change. He actually used that phrase. Blessings, hallelujah. Isn't it amazing? So what we do on the Compassionate Revolution are host acts of art, heart and civil disobedience. So a heart-based action is the mass meditation for the ecocide law. There's another beautiful heart action that was posted recently to bring more compassion and love and kindness into the Labour Party, hosted by Skeena Rathore. So really beautiful things like that you may feel moved to join in with. There's also a heart-based pledge to host refugees. And then the art actions are things that we can do, but collective art actions. So one of those despair things, isn't it, is about the media. Oh my God, the media, so awful, brainwashing everybody, nightmare, we'll never change it, we all agree, but what about the Daily Mail readers? I suppose that, the first thing to say is that revolutions happen when between 1% and 3% of the population rises up, which is less than 2 million people in the UK. We've got 2 million people in our network here, and there are that many people who know this is wrong and needs to change, so we have to just find a way of reaching them. And then, and we don't need the Daily Mail readers, quite truthfully, in that way. We just need to make them know that they're going to be safe. But one of the pledges on the Compassionate Revolution, I mean, that is fundamentally where it comes from, is fear, isn't it? Is a pledge to disrupt the media billionaires. And there are a couple of things you can do there, and there's some stickers here you can take, but it basically talks about how the media's owned by 5 billionaires and a right-wing BBC, and just go and stick these stickers where it so pleases you. Our legal advice is that if you put them on free newspapers, you haven't committed any illegal acts because it's free, it doesn't belong to anybody. So, and when I said about exercising your muscles of dissent, the thing you do first is you go up to the Metro News and you stick one on, and then after a bit you're taking the whole pile out, and then possibly some of us might have stuck it on the box as well, when you get going. There's another one where we've had the legal advice that moving newspapers in a newsagent isn't illegal. So when you walk past, if you Waitrose or Tesco shop like I admit I do, that pile of newspapers and there's an attack on immigrants or Jeremy Corbyn, you can do something about it there, and then it just don't sit in your despair. You can take the Daily Mirror, which is not so bad, or the Guardian, and put it on top, and that's what you start off with when you're exercising your muscles of peaceful mischief. You just do a little shuffle, look round, feel the... After a bit, you've got your shopping trolley, Jeremy Corbyn's there, and you're like, I am not fucking having that. And you take that entire pile, you put them in your shopping trolley, and then because you're buying them obviously, and then you change your mind in the pasta aisle and hide them behind the pasta. You haven't committed an illegal act actually, but what you've done is had a good laugh and you've exercised these muscles that we need to exercise. So the civil disobedience acts that are on there, one is a generic one about climate action, that you're willing to risk arrest for climate action, and my colleague George Barder would like enough of us on there that he could organise a specific action, but we'll also inform you about things like the Merthyr Tydfil action and things like that. And the action that...
So could you just explain that a bit more clearly? So there's a pledge on the website.
Yes.
And if enough of us pledged, if you got 1,000,
yes,
then you'd organise an action.
Exactly.
And we'd obviously then fulfil our pledge of one of us, or whoever
Yeah.
has to take it for the team, one of us will get arrested.
Exactly. And actually with a lot of those things, you don't, even when a kind of non-violent direct action's planned, it's possible to not be arrested, it's possible to be part of the crowd, you don't have to be arrested. There's a risk obviously if you're in that space. Yeah, sorry to rush past that one, but that is explained, it's good for clarification.
Yeah, and it was art and...
Civil disobedience. It's all on the leaflet, So the thing I wanted to tell you about, oh, by the way, it's my birthday today. and the birthday present I want from you all is to sign this particular pledge, if you feel so moved. And I'm going to send my laptop around because the guy who gave me the codes for social change said, the Olympic team won because of tiny little things they did differently, not this big thing they did. So one thing is normally I say, oh, there's a sign-up sheet out there, and then only 10% of you remember to do it. 10% of them misspell their email, and so on. So I get one and then I have to type them up. So no, my Olympic approach here is to get you to sign up right now. Oh, what's happened to my laptop? No, it's fine. So I'm just going to have to.
I'll do it.
There you go. So it'll just come round. Obviously, if you don't want to, it's fine. There's no. I won't cry about it being my birthday or anything. The golden rule, tax disobedience. The golden rule is in so many religious and spiritual practices and teachings, and it's that we're all interconnected and therefore we should treat each other as we wish to be treated. But the golden rule has been changed to those with the gold make the rules, and that's not okay. So that's why we call this tax disobedience that. Now, tax is something you all pay. This nutty organisation, Taxpayers Alliance, there's a special group of people paying tax. There's VAT on everything, loads of, not everything actually, but many things that you buy have VAT on them. And actually poor people spend more money on tax than rich people as a percentage of their income. I've done a lot of work for Tax Justice Network. So the golden rule, so I'm just saying you can participate in this because you pay VAT, and there's a video that shows you exactly how to participate in it. I'll tell you a little bit about it. So the golden rule, tax disobedience, basically says that democracy is more or less non-existent now in the UK, and that tax is at the heart of democracy, both in how it's collected. We all know about the tax dodging, and some of us are paying and many people aren't, the rich people